They told me she was obese, like it was a warning label, like I needed to brace myself before walking into that restaurant. I laughed it off in the car, made a joke to my brother about how blind dates always come with a catch. I had no idea that in less than 2 hours, I would be the one crying in a parking lot, completely undone by a woman I almost didn't give a chance. If you believe in second chances, if you believe people are more than what they look like on the outside, hit that like button right now, drop a comment telling me you're watching, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Humanity Tales because stories like this one deserve to be told. My name is Daniel, and at 34, I had already given up on the idea that anyone could set me up with someone I'd actually like. My sister-in-law, Priya, had been begging me for months to meet her co-worker's cousin, a woman named Meredith. Every time I asked what she looked like, Priya would just smile and say, "Her heart is the best part of her, just go." That kind of answer terrified me more than it reassured me. When my friends found out where I was going, one of them, a guy named Trent who never knew when to shut up, laughed and said, "Bro, I heard she's huge." Like, wear stretchy pants huge. The table of friends around him laughed too. I told them to knock it off, but something in me had already started building a wall, already preparing an exit strategy before I'd even said hello. I got to the restaurant early, the kind of upscale place with linen napkins and candles that made everything feel more serious than it needed to be. I sat at a table by the window, ordered a glass of wine, and tried to calm my nerves. I kept checking my phone, rehearsing polite ways to end the date early if it went badly. I am ashamed to admit that I had already decided, before she even walked in, that this was going to be a short night. Then I saw her. Meredith walked in wearing a red dress, her dark hair falling in waves over her shoulders, her eyes searching the room until they landed on me. She was a heavy-set woman, yes, heavier than anyone I had dated before, and for one humiliating second, my stomach dropped the way you'd feel missing a step in the dark. I saw the way her shoulders tensed as she walked toward me, like she was bracing for my reaction, like she had done this 100 times before and already knew how the ending would go. But there was something else in her face too, something quietly hopeful, something that made my chest ache before I even understood why. What I didn't notice until later, until I turned my head, was the group of people standing near the entrance of the restaurant, phones raised, recording. Trent and his girlfriend, two of his friends in matching red dresses, all of them filming, waiting to catch my reaction, waiting for the moment I would confirm what they already believed, that a man like me couldn't possibly want a woman who looked like her. It was supposed to be a joke. It was supposed to be content for their group chat, a laugh at someone else's expense. I felt anger rise in my throat, sharp and sudden, but I didn't let it show yet. Meredith reached the table, and I stood up, pulled out her chair, and said the only thing that felt true in that moment, "You look absolutely beautiful tonight." I watched her exhale, like she had been holding her breath since she walked through the door, like those 5 words had loosened something tight and painful in her chest. We sat down, and for the first 10 minutes, conversation was slow, careful, the kind of small talk two nervous strangers make when they're both waiting to see if the other person is going to hurt them first. She told me she was an elementary school teacher, that she loved kids because they never judged her the way adults did, that she'd learned early on how cruel people could be about her body, about her weight, about things that had nothing to do with who she actually was inside. She said it so plainly, without asking for pity, that it hit me harder than if she had cried while saying it. I asked her why she agreed to this blind date if she expected it to go badly, and she looked down at her plate for a long moment before answering. She said that Priya had told her I was different, that I was kind, that maybe this time would be the exception. She said she almost canceled 3 times that day. She said she'd been set up before, and more than once, the men had taken one look at her and made an excuse to leave before the appetizers even arrived. One man, she told me quietly, had literally gotten up mid-meal, claimed a work emergency, and never came back, leaving her sitting alone at a table while other diners glanced over and whispered. Something in me broke a little hearing that. I thought about every joke my friends had made in the car, every warning wrapped in cruelty, and I felt sick that I had laughed along with any of it. As dinner went on, something shifted. She had this laugh, unguarded and real, the kind that made other people at nearby tables smile without knowing why. She talked about her students with a warmth that lit up her whole face, told a story about a little boy in her class who was scared to read out loud because kids made fun of his stutter, and how she spent every lunch period for a month reading with him privately until he built up the courage to read in front of the class. She didn't tell it like a hero story. She told it like it was just an ordinary Tuesday, like this was simply what you do when someone is hurting and you have the ability to help. I realized, somewhere between the appetizer and the main course, that I hadn't looked at my phone once. I realized I was leaning forward, hanging on her words, laughing harder than I had in months. I realized that whatever image I had built in my head walking through the door had completely dissolved, replaced by a woman whose spirit was so bright it made the room feel warmer. Then I glanced toward the entrance again, and I saw them still there, Trent and the others, phones still raised, waiting, grinning like hyenas circling something wounded. And that's when the anger I'd been holding down finally rose to the surface. I stood up from the table, walked directly toward them, and asked them, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, what exactly they thought they were filming. Trent stammered something about it being a joke, about wanting to see my reaction. I told him my reaction was that I was having the best date I'd had in years, and that if he wanted footage, he could film himself apologizing to Meredith for humiliating her before she'd even sat down. The girls in red dresses shifted uncomfortably. One of them actually lowered her phone and looked away, ashamed. I told them, plainly, that judging someone before they even open their mouth says everything about your character and nothing about theirs. Then I walked back to the table, my hands shaking, my heart pounding, and sat back down across from Meredith. She was staring at me, eyes glassy, lips pressed together like she was trying to hold something in. I asked if she was okay, and she shook her head slowly, then admitted, voice breaking, that no one had ever defended her like that before, not once, not even close. She said most people either joined in the laughing or stayed silent and let it happen, and both felt like betrayal. She said watching someone stand up for her, a near stranger she'd known for less than an hour, undid something in her she thought had been broken for good. That's when she started to cry, right there at the table, not from sadness but from something closer to disbelief, like joy she didn't trust yet. And honestly, so did I. I felt my own eyes burning, my throat tightening, because I understood in that moment how many years of cruelty had built up behind her eyes, how much armor she wore just to walk into a restaurant and try, one more time, to let someone in. We stayed at that restaurant for almost 4 hours that night, long after our plates were cleared, long after the waiter stopped refilling our water glasses and started giving us knowing smiles instead. We talked about everything, our families, our fears, the way both of us had been hurt by people who claimed to love us. By the end of the night, I knew, with a certainty I couldn't explain, that I wanted to see her again. Not out of guilt, not out of some need to prove a point to Trent and his friends, but because Meredith was, without exaggeration, one of the most genuinely good people I had ever met. If this story moved you even a little, if it made you think differently about how quickly we judge people before we know their hearts, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness matters more than appearance ever will. Before I tell you how our story continued, I want to ask you for something small. Comment the word heart below if you believe everyone deserves a real chance, no matter what they look like. Meredith and I have now been together for over a year. The friends who filmed that night, most of them apologized eventually, though Trent still struggles to look me in the eye. But none of that matters much anymore, because what I found that evening wasn't just a date that went right, it was proof that the people who look past the surface are usually the ones who find something worth keeping underneath.